Welcome back to another episode of Military Minded. In the studio today we have Lee Hall. Lee was an officer in the Navy where he flew A-6 intruders and even spent a time aboard an aircraft carrier. He's here to tell us everything about his experience. Thank you very much for coming in here today, sir.
Well, thank you.
So, did you always intend on joining the Navy out of high school, or?
No, I didn't. In fact, when I was a senior in high school, if somebody would have told me 4 or 5 years down the road I was going to be in the Navy, I would have said they were nuts. It's kind of an interesting story how I ultimately got into the Navy, and it was where I was going to the University of Nevada, Reno. I was majoring in pre-veterinary medicine and not really doing that great, but my sophomore year, I'm sitting there reading the school newspaper, and I see a little ad for a free airplane ride that the Navy was giving. So I thought, hey, I'd really like to do that, especially if it's free. And so I went down to the student union, talked to the recruiters, and they wanted me to take a bunch of tests. 3 hours later, I came back, gave it to them, passed, and they said, meet us out at the airfield. So Saturday morning, I met them out there in the airfield. Instructor pilot and I strapped into a T-34. We went north of town, did some aerobatics and some dive bombing runs on the local farmhouses, and I had a ball doing that. Really had a great time. But when we landed, I pretty much said, thank you, see you later. And several months went by. I kept getting the literature from the Navy, and I started reading that and getting more and more interested. They were talking about flight training and going through officer candidate school down in Pensacola, Florida. I'd never been to Florida, so that looked really nice to me. Looking at the benefits of being an officer and also the adventure of flying, everything started to just get very attractive to me. And finally, late my sophomore year, I decided that that would be a very good move. So I got back in touch with the Navy and said, sign me up. All
right. So you signed up for the Navy. Now let's describe the training process that you had to go to when you first enlisted.
Well, I got into a rather unique program in that going into Aviation Officer Candidate School, or what we call AOCS, it's normally an 18-week program. The program I went into was actually had the 18 weeks split into 2 separate 9-week sessions. The first session I'd report down to Pensacola the summer between my junior and senior year, and then I would come back to school, get my degree, and then report back down there for the second 9 weeks and do that and get a commission. But the first 9-week period, I had a little Puerto Rican Marine drill instructor who just put the fear of God into you. I mean, he whittled us down into little puddles of sweat every single day. But we went from doing physical activity, physical training, to marching with rifles, learning how to drill, learning how to march, learning how to do everything in unison. We also had academics we had to go to, a lot of running, and they basically broke us down and then molded us into the type of person they wanted. But it was a great experience. I learned a lot, met a lot of great guys, made a lot of good friends, a sense of camaraderie. When I came back after that first 9-week period, I knew I wanted to go back. So I got my degree, went back, got my commission, and from there went right into flight training.
So, now you went through all the training, with the intense training, and you decided you have a career now in aviation, correct?
Yes. Well, it's interesting because, again, I go back to that time when I opened the paper and got interested in the flying. That led to going down to Pensacola, led to me getting a commission in the Navy as an ensign. Went right into flight training, got my wings. I learned how to fly the A-6 intruder on an aircraft carrier. I picked up a master's degree, and from there, when I left active duty Navy, I went to work for an aerospace firm where I currently work right now for Northrop Grumman.
Okay, so when you flew, you brought a model of the jet you flew here?
Yes, this is a model of the A-6 intruder. All right. The A-6 intruder was actually designed in the late 50s. It was built by Grumman. It's a 2-seat pilot and bombardier navigator. I was the bombardier navigator. Some of the distinguishing features of the aircraft, you had a large refueling probe here. This allowed us to plug into a tanker. We could take extra fuel, which would extend our range or time on station. A large nose, which housed a very sophisticated radar system. This radar allowed us, or allowed me as the bombardier navigator, to navigate the aircraft at night, all weather, A lot of times we could fly as low as 200 feet over varying terrains, over the mountains, with the goal of the aircraft, keeping the aircraft below the enemy's radar horizon. The aircraft carried as much as 15,000 pounds of ordnance. In this case, with this model, I'm showing 24 500-pound bombs. So very good airplane, very stable. Thoroughly enjoyed flying it, and unfortunately, they retired the aircraft here about 10 years ago.
Oh, so now let's talk about, like, you spent time obviously on an aircraft carrier. What was that experience like with the tight quarters?
The experience on an aircraft carrier is really unique, and it's something that I treasure and I'm very proud of being part of. An aircraft carrier is virtually a floating city. The USS Kitty Hawk that I was on, when I was there, it was manned by 5,000 to 6,000 men. At the time, there were no women on board the ship. So 5,000 to 6,000 men. Everybody had their own jobs to do. It was the choreography of everybody working together to keep the ship moving, to keep the air wing, keep the aircraft flying. It was pretty amazing. I mean, you had guys that were cooks, you had guys that maintained aircraft, you had guys that kept the ship moving, navigating the ship, driving the ship, flight deck people that would refuel the aircraft, put weapons on it, put us up to a catapult, and launch and recover us. It's a unique experience. Very, very demanding. I mean, we would work sometimes 7 days a week, 15, 18-hour days. You're staying extremely busy, and it's a very unique operating environment.
It's a bit demanding, huh?
Very demanding.
Right.
Very demanding, very dangerous. If you're not paying attention, it's a very dangerous environment.
Okay, so I understand that you brought your gear with
Yes.
you today, so we can look at. All right, let's take a look at that.
Some of the gear I brought, which is not all of what we would have when I would fly. This is the flight jacket. This is actually it became part of an aviator's uniform, unofficial uniform.
Get used to this. Fat guy in a little coat kind of thing going on right now. I like that.
A flight jacket is an aviator's own unique identity because it'll have your squadron patches, where you've been, what you've done on a particular ship. For instance, like right here, here's the aircraft I flew, the A6 Intruder. On the Kitty Hawk, this patch showed 200 landings on the carrier. So it's kind of a unique identifier for every aviator.
Now, do you earn patches as you go along, or how does that work?
Yes,
okay.
you do earn the patches as you go along.
All right.
Part of the other parts of the uniform starts off with the flight suit, and you have to put this on first. Everybody wears it. That flies. It's fireproof, and actually, it's a very comfortable piece of equipment.
All right.
From the flight suit, we'll put on additional gear like a G suit that we have that has a bunch of bladders in it. That when we're flying in the aircraft, we're pulling G's. The bladders will inflate to keep the blood from pooling. And keeping us from blacking out.
Right. And this is
this is called a torso harness.
All right.
This is what we would wear over the G suit, and the torso harness is what connects us to the ejection seat and the parachute that's part of the ejection seat, and what you call the seat pan underneath that we're sitting on that has our life raft and everything for ocean survival.
Okay. What do you like? You strap all your gear onto this?
Well, actually, once we have this on, we have more gear that we put on that I don't have here. We had another big piece of gear called the LPH, which is an inflatable vest in case we're in the water. We can inflate that, and it keeps us out of water. But it has a survival radio, knife, water, food that we'd carry, flashlight, and other survival gear that would be part of that LPH.
So all precautions were being taken then, basically.
Absolutely. The key thing is you have to be prepared for any kind of contingency so that you can survive.
All right. Total weight, like once you had all your gear on, what was like the total weight?
Once we had all of our gear on, which includes the helmet and the oxygen mask, we're probably talking close to 40 pounds of gear that we're wearing. So when I was flying, I was a skinny little runt of about 150 pounds, and so with all this stuff on, I was now big guy at about 190 pounds.
So that made things just a little more difficult, huh?
Yes.
Getting around. All right. So next we're going to go to. So now, after your naval experience, like I mean, your life. I'm sure your life has obviously changed.
Yes.
Like, how? What impact has
Well,
that made in your?
The Navy did a lot of things for me. Number one, going back to training in officer candidate school, I learned a lot about me, what I could do. I learned to push myself beyond things that I ever thought I could do. Once I got my commission, went into flight training, I learned how to study. You know, when I was going through college, I was maybe a C+, B student. And I thought, you know, that was enough to get me by. But when I was going through flight training, I learned to study because now I'm competing with all of my friends, all of my guys that I went through officer candidate school. So now if this was the aircraft I really wanted to fly, I had to work hard to beat the person next to me, because who got this aircraft to fly was based upon your class standing. And so I learned how to study. I learned how to apply myself more. But the Navy also did me a number of other things, because I was able to get a master's degree. And so the experience of flying, being an officer, I learned how to manage people. I got my master's degree, and then I went to work now for an aerospace firm.
It's basically give you the spirit of, you know, healthy competition.
Absolutely. And I look back at that day when I decided to join the Navy was probably one of the best decisions I've ever made in my life.
Yep. So I know many of our viewers are like interested in joining, you know, the military forces. What would your advice to them be as far as taking that next step?
Everybody's different, so you know that's a personal decision that they have to make. But right now, I could sit there and I'd say I would highly recommend somebody that, if they're interested in it, go for it. You got to be careful on what you get into and what specialties you go for and such, but it's all tailored to the individual. But I look back at it and say, and for me, it was an incredible experience. It really made me a better person, prepared me to be a better man, and set me up for the rest of my life. But one of the things that I really treasure from my Navy experience was the friendships, the camaraderie I had with the guys that I went through flight training with, officer candidate school, and my squadron mates, lifelong friends. And that's probably one of the things I miss most, even to this day, is that camaraderie and that sense of military lifestyle.
All right. Well, I'd like to thank you. Thank you for coming Thank you for coming in today, Lee, and for sharing your experience with us, and for serving our country.
Well, thank you. It's my pleasure.
That's all the time we have for today. Make sure that you join us next week when we will be discussing women and their ever-changing roles in our military forces. Until then, I'm TJ Luck. Have a good night.
A dog without a bone, an actor out alone, riders on the storm. There's a killer on the road, his brain is squirming like a toad. Take a